What if the planet we think we know is hiding more secrets than we've ever imagined? For centuries, we've called Earth our home, studied its mountains, mapped its oceans, and traced the stars above its skies. We've convinced ourselves that we've unlocked its story, that science has filled in the gaps once explained by myth. But the truth is far stranger, and far more unsettling. Beneath the surface of this world lies a story written in fire, shattered by cataclysms, erased by floods, and whispered through ruins that defy explanation. Earth isn't just a planet, it's a puzzle, and most of its pieces are still missing. Think about it. This is a world born from chaos, where collisions with ancient giants gave rise to the moon, where oceans boiled and froze, and where life itself emerged against impossible odds. For billions of years, Earth has carried on without us, reshaping itself again and again, sometimes in ways that wiped nearly everything clean. Yet scattered across its surface are hints that something more has always been at play. From monuments carved with precision modern tools can barely match, to maps suggesting knowledge that shouldn't exist, to myths describing disasters that science now confirms, Earth has been keeping its secrets close, revealing them only when we're ready or desperate enough to look. And even today, with satellites circling the skies and machines diving into the abyss, we've barely scratched the surface. More than 80% of the oceans remain unexplored. Vast stretches of jungle still hide ruins larger than modern cities. Deep within the crust, microbial life survives in conditions we once thought impossible. Every time we think we understand Earth, it shifts the story, daring us to question what we really know. So maybe Earth is not the stable, familiar ground we imagine. Maybe it is a living archive of mysteries, a being that has been shaping, guiding, and challenging us since the beginning. And the question we have to ask is this: if the place we call home remains this unknown, what does that say about everything else we've yet to discover? 4.5 billion years ago, there was no blue planet, no lush forests, no oceans, no skies filled with birds or clouds. There was only chaos, dust, rock, fire, and violence. Our solar system was a newborn, and Earth was not yet Earth. What eventually became our home began as a swirl of cosmic debris circling a young and restless sun, colliding, shattering, fusing, and reforming in a dance of destruction. It is almost impossible to imagine. The planet beneath our feet was born not from serenity, but from a storm of unimaginable violence. Every grain of sand on a beach, every mountain peak, every drop of water in the ocean, all of it traces back to those first collisions in the void. In those early days, Earth was not the calm cradle of life we know today. It was a world of molten seas and endless bombardments. The surface boiled under a sky of toxic gases, with temperatures so high that rocks themselves melted into oceans of lava. Meteors the size of continents crashed down, shaking the planet to its core. Each impact was catastrophic, yet each was also creative, adding mass, delivering minerals, and sometimes bringing the building blocks of life itself. In this inferno, the raw ingredients of our world were forged. One of the most violent of these impacts changed everything. A body the size of Mars, known as Theia, slammed into the young Earth with such force that molten rock and vapor blasted into space. For a moment, Earth itself seemed shattered, but from the debris, a new companion formed. The moon. It wasn't just an accident, it was destiny. The moon stabilized Earth's tilt, giving us seasons. It tugged on the oceans, creating tides that shaped the rhythms of life. Without that violent collision, there may have been no balance, no stable climate, no path for humanity to one day emerge. What looked like destruction was, in truth, the foundation of survival. As Earth cooled, its fiery skin hardened into the first crust. Volcanoes erupted endlessly, spewing gases that formed a primitive atmosphere. That atmosphere was not the one we breathe today. It was thick with carbon dioxide, methane, and ammonia. To us, it would have been poison, but it was a stage set for transformation. Over millions of years, comets may have delivered water, crashing down with icy payloads from the outer solar system. Slowly, oceans gathered, filling basins carved by planetary upheaval. Earth shifted from fire to water, from barren to fertile. The same world that once burned with rivers of lava now rippled with waves under alien sky. But Earth was still restless. Its core remained molten, churning with energy that powered the movement of continents. Even then, tectonic plates were drifting, colliding, and breaking apart. This shifting ground would shape mountains, open oceans, and recycle the very surface of the planet. Unlike Mars or Venus, Earth refused to remain static. It was alive in its geology, constantly remaking itself. This restless energy would one day create fertile soil, carve valleys for rivers, and forge landscapes that became homes for life. The violence never stopped. It simply changed shape, becoming the silent engine of creation. Life's arrival was the greatest mystery of all. Out of the chaos of chemistry, out of oceans stirred by lightning and warmed by volcanic vents, the first fragile spark appeared. Simple cells too small to see, too fragile to imagine surviving in such a harsh world, began to multiply. These tiny beings would eventually change the entire planet. They learned to harvest energy, to reproduce, to evolve. They released oxygen as waste, slowly transforming the toxic air into something breathable. It took billions of years, but those invisible pioneers paved the way for forests, animals, and eventually us. That transformation was not inevitable. It was improbable, and yet it happened here, on a planet that seemed least likely to nurture life. What's most haunting about Earth's fiery birth is how much of it still lingers in us today. The iron in our blood was forged in stars that died long before our sun was born. The calcium in our bones came from the crust of a planet once molten. The water we drink may have fallen from comets that crashed here billions of years ago. Every heartbeat, every breath, every step is tied to those ancient cataclysms. We are, in the most literal sense, children of fire and collision. The violence of Earth's birth is still within us, coded into our very being. And yet, for all that science has uncovered, the story remains incomplete. How exactly did life emerge from non-life? Did it spark here in the oceans, or was it carried on asteroids from elsewhere, seeded across planets like an ancient signature of the cosmos? Why did Earth thrive while Mars dried out and Venus suffocated under its atmosphere? Was it luck, or was it something deeper, something written into the laws of existence itself? These questions remain unanswered, and they remind us that Earth's birth was not just a physical event, it was a mystery, one that even today resists full explanation. But perhaps that is what makes this story so powerful. Earth was not meant to be easy, predictable, or tame. It was born in chaos, raised in fire, and shaped by chance. And yet, from that violence, beauty emerged. The oceans shimmer, the mountains rise, the forests breathe, all because billions of years ago, a ball of molten rock endured impacts that should have destroyed it. Instead, it became the one place in the known universe where life thrives. As we stand on its surface now, with skyscrapers touching the clouds and satellites orbiting overhead, it's easy to forget that all of this began in dust and destruction. But the ground beneath us is a reminder. Every rock, every grain of sand, every fossil in the stone tells the same story. Earth was born in fire, but it learned to live, and that is perhaps the greatest miracle of all, that what began in chaos became the cradle of consciousness, a world not only capable of sustaining life, but of producing beings who can look back and tell the story. But that was only the first chapter. Earth's fiery birth set the stage, but the mysteries that followed, the civilizations that rose and fell, the secrets buried beneath seas and mountains, the anomalies that still defy explanation, would make the story even stranger. Because as Earth cooled and stabilized, it did not become simple. It became more complex, more mysterious, and more unpredictable than anyone could have imagined. And what happened next would reveal that this planet, far from being understood, is still the greatest riddle we've ever encountered. When we look back at the earliest chapters of human history, we often think of ancient Egypt, with its pyramids rising from the desert sands, or Mesopotamia with its clay tablets recording the dawn of writing. But what if those civilizations, as old and mighty as they seem, were not the beginning at all? What if they were simply the latest inheritors of knowledge passed down from cultures far older, cultures erased from memory by cataclysm and time? Beneath the official timeline lies a shadowy layer of human history that whispers of civilizations before memory, societies so advanced or mysterious that their very existence challenges everything we think we know. Take Göbekli Tepe, for example. In modern-day Turkey, this archaeological site stunned the world when it was uncovered. Massive stone pillars carved with animals and abstract symbols, carefully arranged in circles, stood buried beneath the earth for thousands of years. Carbon dating placed the site at over 11,000 years old, nearly twice as old as Stonehenge, far older than the pyramids. According to mainstream history, humans at that time were supposed to be simple hunter-gatherers, wandering nomads without cities or advanced organization. And yet Göbekli Tepe reveals planning, engineering, artistry, and a spiritual or symbolic purpose that defies explanation. How could a people without metal tools or agriculture achieve something so monumental? Some suggest it was evidence of a forgotten civilization, one whose memory survived only in myth, and myths are where the trail grows stranger still. The story of Atlantis, told by Plato in his dialogues, has been dismissed for centuries as allegory. Yet details of a great, powerful civilization swallowed by the sea echo across cultures. Flood myths appear everywhere, from the Sumerians' tale of Zayasudra to the biblical story of Noah to Hindu legends of Manu. Even indigenous stories from the Americas speak of a time when rising waters wiped away entire peoples. Were these simply symbolic, or could they be memories of real catastrophes that erased entire worlds? Modern geology has uncovered evidence of massive floods at the end of the last ice age, when melting glaciers sent torrents of water surging across continents. Entire coastlines vanished beneath the oceans. If cities once thrived there, their ruins may still lie hidden on the seafloor waiting to be rediscovered. In recent years, technology has started to reveal more hints. Off the coast of Japan lies the Yonaguni Monument, a massive stone structure beneath the waves. Its terraces and sharp angles resemble man-made design, yet geologists debate whether it is natural or constructed. If it was shaped by human hands, it would rewrite our understanding of early civilization. Similar mysteries exist elsewhere. Submerged ruins off India's coast near Deepwater, stone structures in the Caribbean, and puzzling artifacts found in layers of earth where they shouldn't exist. Each discovery suggests that human history may not be a straight line from primitive to advanced, but a cycle of rise, collapse, and rediscovery. What's most haunting is how much may have been lost. The Ice Age world was very different from ours, with sea levels hundreds of feet lower. Entire land masses that once connected continents are now drowned. Imagine vast coastal civilizations erased overnight by floods, their knowledge scattered among survivors who carried fragments of memory into myth. This could explain why so many ancient cultures separated by oceans and time share uncanny similarities in architecture, symbols and myths of gods descending from the sky or rising from the sea. Were they inventing the same stories by coincidence, or were they remembering something their ancestors had once truly seen? Consider the pyramids of Giza. They are officially dated to around 4,500 years ago, built by skilled but relatively primitive technology, yet their alignment with celestial bodies, their precision in construction, and their mathematical proportions suggest a knowledge far beyond what the historical record grants. Some researchers have even argued the pyramids may be older, built upon remnants of something predating pharaonic Egypt, and Egypt is not alone. From the megalithic walls of Sacsayhuaman in Peru, with stones so massive and perfectly fitted they defy explanation, to the giant Moai statues of Easter Island, humanity has left behind monuments that seem to whisper of lost techniques, lost wisdom, perhaps even lost civilizations. Mainstream archaeology often dismisses these ideas, insisting that human progress was slow and gradual. But the mysteries are there, staring us in the face. Why do so many myths tell of golden ages long past, of gods teaching knowledge and then vanishing, of catastrophes that ended entire eras? Why do ancient maps like the Peri Race chart coastlines of Antarctica long before ice covered them? Why do sites like Nan Madol in Micronesia or the massive stone spheres of Costa Rica exist without clear purpose or origin? It's almost as if fragments of an older world survive, scattered like breadcrumbs daring us to follow. Even DNA carries hints. Studies of human genetics suggest that our species may have been reduced to small populations during catastrophic events, bottlenecks in history that nearly erased us. Yet from those survivors came myths of great floods, fire from the sky, and vanished worlds. Perhaps they were not exaggerations, but memories carried through oral tradition until they became the myths we know today. The idea of civilizations before memory challenges us in uncomfortable ways. It forces us to accept that history is not neat or linear. It suggests that knowledge can be lost, that greatness can vanish, and that humanity may not be as unique in its progress as we imagine. Perhaps we are not the first to rise, but simply the latest. And if that is true, then the ruins we study are not just relics of the past. They are warnings of what can befall even the mightiest of societies. What makes this possibility even more unsettling is how much of Earth remains unexplored. Vast jungles still hide uncharted ruins. Beneath deserts, buried cities wait beneath the sand. And under the seas covering more than 2/3 of the planet lie worlds we've barely glimpsed. If entire civilizations once thrived along Ice Age coastlines, they are now beyond reach, drowned and waiting for someone bold enough to seek them. But maybe that's the point. Maybe Earth itself is guarding these secrets, revealing them only slowly. When we're ready to question everything we thought we knew, we're only beginning to peel back the layers of forgotten history, but every discovery hints at a truth larger than we can grasp. Civilizations before memory remind us that our story is fragile, that knowledge can vanish in an instant, and that what we call the beginning may simply be another middle chapter in an endless cycle. And just as we start to confront that possibility, the trail of mysteries pulls us deeper, not into deserts or ruins this time, but into the oceans, where the greatest secrets of all may be hiding. Because if the land holds whispers of forgotten worlds, the seas may be screaming with truths we have yet to hear. And what waits beneath those waves would shock even the most skeptical mind. The oceans cover more than 70% of Earth's surface, yet when you think about it, they remain the planet's greatest blind spot. We have mapped the surface of Mars and even the frozen landscapes of Pluto, with greater detail than we have our own ocean floors. More than 80% of the deep sea is still unexplored, hidden in darkness, pressure, and silence. This alone should make us stop and think, how can we claim to know Earth's story when the vast majority of its surface is still a mystery? Beneath those waves may lie answers to questions we've carried for millennia about lost civilizations, strange creatures, and geological forces that could reshape the planet in an instant. The oceans are not just bodies of water, they are vaults of forgotten history, guardians of secrets so profound they blur the line between myth and reality. One of the most famous mysteries of the deep lies off the coast of Japan, the Yonaguni Monument. Discovered in the 1980s, this massive underwater structure appears to be a series of terraces, staircases, and angular formations that look uncannily like human-made architecture. Divers describe it as an underwater city, with features that suggest deliberate design rather than natural erosion. And yet the debate rages on. Some scientists insist it's nothing more than an unusual geological formation. Others point out that if it was indeed built, it would have to date back more than 10,000 years, when the sea levels were far lower. That would make it older than any known civilization, rewriting the timeline of human history. Was it a city swallowed by rising sea, a ritual complex drowned by catastrophe, or simply the ocean playing tricks on our imagination? The fact that we don't know keeps the mystery alive. But Yonaguni is not alone. Across the globe, submerged ruins and anomalies hint at entire worlds lost to the waves. Off the coast of India, near the city of Dwarka, divers have found stone structures that seem to match ancient descriptions of a legendary city said to have been home to Krishna. Sonar mapping has revealed streets, walls, and grids, all lying beneath the Arabian Sea. If proven, these ruins would be among the oldest human constructions ever discovered, suggesting civilizations flourished along coastlines long before mainstream history admits. Yet the sea hides them well, and exploration is costly, leaving us with tantalizing fragments of a story we cannot yet finish. Even in places where we have no ruins, the oceans echo with mysteries that cannot be explained. In 1997, hydrophones recorded a sound so loud it shook the imagination of scientists. Nicknamed the bloop, it was a low-frequency noise unlike anything ever captured before. At first, speculation ran wild. Was it some colossal sea creature lurking in the depths? Something larger than a blue whale hidden in the crushing darkness? Officially, researchers later suggested it was likely the sound of ice breaking off Antarctica, but many remain unconvinced, noting that the sound carried an organic signature, something alive. The ocean is vast enough to hide monsters we can hardly imagine. And who's to say the myths of sea serpents and leviathans were not born from fleeting encounters with real creatures dwelling in the abyss? And it's not just sounds. There are regions of the ocean where ships vanish, compasses spin wildly, and anomalies baffle experts. The Bermuda Triangle has become legend, but beneath the exaggerations lies a kernel of truth, strange disappearances, sudden equipment failures, and stories of lights under the sea persist, often dismissed yet never fully explained. Could unusual magnetic fields be responsible, or methane hydrates erupting from the seafloor, or, as some suggest, evidence of something far stranger. Once again, the ocean keeps its secrets, revealing only glimpses that keep us questioning. Then there are the biological wonders that feel almost alien. In the deep sea, where no sunlight reaches, creatures produce their own light through bioluminescence, glowing like stars in an eternal night. Some look like nightmares, anglerfish with gaping jaws, colossal squid with eyes the size of dinner plates, jellyfish that stretch longer than whales. Many of these beings were once thought to be myths, until they were finally captured on camera. If such strange creatures can exist in places we've barely touched, what else might be waiting? Deeper still, beyond the limits of our machines. Perhaps the tales of krakens and monsters were not fiction but rare glimpses into an alien world on our very own planet. What makes the ocean so compelling is not just the possibility of lost cities or strange creatures, but how closely it ties to human memory and myth. Almost every ancient culture has stories of floods, sunken lands, or gods that came from the sea. The Sumerians spoke of Oannes, a mysterious figure who emerged from the waters to teach humanity knowledge. Polynesian myths describe vast lands swallowed by the ocean. Even Plato's Atlantis fits the pattern. A great civilization destroyed by rising seas. Modern science confirms that as the Ice Age ended, sea levels rose dramatically, drowning coastlines where early humans may have built their first cities. Imagine entire cultures swept away, their monuments swallowed, their stories surviving only as fragmented legend. What lies beneath the seas could very well be the missing chapters of humanity's forgotten history. And yet, despite knowing this, we've barely begun to look. Deep-sea exploration is expensive, dangerous, and often neglected in favor of outer space. But perhaps the greatest frontier is not above us. It is below. If 80% of the ocean remains uncharted, then most of Earth itself remains unknown. What if the answers to our deepest questions about human origins, ancient civilizations, or even the possibility of alien life are not in the stars, but right here in the abyss below the waves? Even the geological secrets of the oceans remain staggering. Hydrothermal vents, discovered only in the late 20th century, are ecosystems thriving without sunlight, fueled by chemicals from Earth's crust. Entire colonies of life exist there, challenging our understanding of biology and hinting that life might not need sunlight at all. A discovery with implications for extraterrestrial life. If life can thrive in the crushing darkness of Earth's oceans, why not on Europa or Enceladus? Moons with hidden seas beneath their icy shells. The mysteries of Earth's oceans may very well hold the key to finding life beyond Earth. The seas also remind us of Earth's fragility. Rising temperatures and melting ice are once again changing coastlines, threatening to drown cities just as ancient ones were submerged before. In this sense, the oceans are not just keepers of secrets, but also warnings. They show us what has been lost and what can be lost again if we fail to listen. The story of civilizations before memory may not just be history, it may also be prophecy. The truth is, the oceans are not empty. They are alive, dangerous, and filled with enigmas we have yet to face. Every dive into the depths uncovers something unexpected, new species, strange phenomena, whispers of forgotten worlds. If we dare to keep searching, we may find that the line between myth and reality is far thinner than we imagine. But if we ignore the seas, their secrets will remain buried, waiting for some future generation to discover them, perhaps when it's already too late. And as mysterious as the oceans are, they are not the only place where Earth hides its secrets. Because while the deep blue swallows civilizations and spawns legends, the ground beneath our very feet may hold even stranger truths. For countless cultures, there have been stories of vast realms inside the Earth itself, subterranean worlds that defy explanation. If the oceans guard one layer of mystery, then what lies below us suggests another, even darker one. If the oceans are Earth's vast and silent guardians of mystery, then the ground beneath our feet is its most deceptive secret. We walk across it every day, build our homes upon it, and carve tunnels into its crust. But how much of Earth's interior do we truly understand? Science tells us the planet is layered: crust, mantle, outer core, inner core, a molten heart of iron generating the magnetic field that shields us from cosmic radiation. Yet for centuries, legends and strange accounts have suggested something different, that hidden worlds may exist below the surface, vast subterranean realms with their own landscapes, rivers, even entire civilization. These tales, often dismissed as fantasy, have persisted across cultures and eras, hinting at the possibility that Earth itself is not just a planet, but a labyrinth of hidden domain. Ancient myths from around the world describe entrances to underworlds, gateways that lead not to metaphorical afterlives, but to literal realms beneath the earth. The Greeks spoke of Hades, a shadowy world below where souls journeyed after death. The Mayans told of Xibalba, a vast underworld filled with trials and strange beings. In Hindu traditions, Patala was a subterranean domain inhabited by serpent-like beings, rich with treasures and mysteries. Even Norse mythology spoke of dark realms beneath Yggdrasil, the world tree, places where giants and serpents dwelled. While mainstream interpretations treat these stories as symbolic, they all share a common theme, a belief that beneath the surface lies something more than stone and fire. The idea of a hollow earth gained traction in more recent centuries as explorers pushed into uncharted regions. In the 17th century, scientist Edmund Halley, the same Halley for whom Halley's Comet is named, proposed that Earth might consist of multiple concentric shells, each with its own atmosphere, separated by luminous spaces. His theory was an attempt to explain strange magnetic anomalies, and though later dismissed by modern science, it sparked curiosity that refuses to die. By the 19th century, writers and adventurers began spinning tales of subterranean realms. Jules Verne's Journey to the Center of the Earth imagined vast caverns filled with prehistoric life, while other accounts claimed to describe real encounters with hidden worlds. Perhaps the most famous of these is the legend of Admiral Richard E. Byrd, an American explorer who led expeditions to both the Arctic and Antarctic. According to conspiracy theories that have grown around his life, Byrd supposedly discovered lush green lands beyond the icy poles, territories where advanced civilizations thrive beneath the surface. Reports claim he spoke of aircraft-like objects and encounters with beings far more advanced than humans. While official records show nothing of the sort and most historians dismiss these claims as fabrications, the myth persists, fueled by humanity's fascination with hidden realms and lost knowledge. But it isn't only myths and conspiracies that keep the Hollow Earth idea alive. There are genuine geological anomalies that continue to puzzle scientists. For example, in 2019, researchers discovered two massive structures deep within Earth's mantle, larger than continents and denser than the surrounding rock. No one knows exactly what they are, remnants of an ancient planetary collision, or something entirely unknown. Seismic studies, which measure how earthquake waves travel through the planet, reveal unexpected patterns, suggesting layers and structures we do not yet understand. While science insists Earth is not hollow in the literal sense, these anomalies remind us how little we truly know about what lies miles beneath our feet. Then there are the stories of massive cave systems that defy explanation. In Vietnam, the Sundong Cave is so vast it has its own weather system, complete with clouds and jungles thriving in its depths. In Mexico, underground rivers run for miles, connecting cenotes that the Maya believed were portals to other realms. In Turkey, entire underground cities like Derinkuyu have been uncovered, vast networks of tunnels and chambers capable of sheltering tens of thousands of people. Who built them, and why? Were they simply refuges from invaders, or part of a much older tradition of seeking safety underground, echoing myths of deeper worlds? These discoveries blur the line between practical history and the suggestion of something more profound. Modern conspiracy theories about Hollow Earth often paint it as a refuge for hidden civilizations, sometimes ancient humans who retreated underground to survive cataclysms, sometimes non-human beings who have always lived beneath us. Stories speak of entrances at the poles, of governments hiding evidence, of UFOs that do not come from the stars but from beneath the earth. While such tales strain credibility, they reflect a deeper human intuition that beneath the surface lies something we are not meant to see, something too powerful or too strange to confront directly. Even science cannot completely close the door on the mysteries of the deep earth. Consider the fact that we have never drilled deeper than a fraction of the crust. The Kola super-deep borehole in Russia, the deepest artificial point ever created, only reached about 7.5 miles, barely scratching the surface of a planet nearly 8,000 miles across. What scientists found there was unexpected. Rocks behaving in ways they had not predicted, high temperatures that defied models, even water trapped deep in crystalline structures where none should exist. If so much mystery exists just miles down, what could lie hundreds of miles deep? The fascination with Hollow Earth is not just about geography. It is about what it represents. To imagine hidden worlds beneath our feet is to confront the possibility that our reality is layered, that we are not the only inhabitants of this planet. It taps into the same curiosity that drives us to explore outer space, the hunger to know what lies beyond the limits of our perception. Perhaps the hollow Earth is not literally true, but symbolically it points to the fact that Earth is still largely unknown, and that beneath the surface, whether in caves, caverns, or even symbolic myths, exist truths that could change how we see ourselves. For those who believe, Hollow Earth is not a myth but a warning. It suggests that humanity is not alone, that others older, wiser, or more advanced may be watching from below. It frames Earth as not just a home but a shared space, one where surface dwellers and hidden civilizations coexist in ways we cannot yet understand. For skeptics, the legend is simply a reminder of how powerful stories can be, how myths endure because they speak to something deep within us. And perhaps that is the key. Whether Hollow Earth is real or not, the idea compels us to question what we think we know. We assume Earth is solid, mapped, and understood. But every discovery, from colossal mantle structures to vast cave systems, reminds us otherwise. If we cannot even claim full knowledge of what lies beneath our feet, how can we be so sure about anything else? The deeper we look, the stranger the planet becomes, and if the Hollow Earth is just one of many mysteries, then what lies above us? Those skies filled with lights, anomalies and phenomena may hold secrets just as baffling, if not more so, because if the ground below whispers of hidden worlds, the skies above roar with enigmas waiting to be revealed. If the earth beneath our feet hides secrets in its depths, then the skies above us conceal mysteries no less haunting. For as long as humans have lifted their eyes to the heavens, they have been struck by awe and confusion, watching lights dance across the dark, storms tearing through the air, and phenomena that seem to defy explanation. The sky has always been both a canvas for beauty and a theatre for terror, and despite the advances of science, it remains a realm filled with enigmas. To the ancients, the heavens were a place where gods fought, where omens were written, where the fate of kingdoms was decided by eclipses and comets. Today, we may explain some of these wonders with science, but the mysteries of the sky are far from solved. Take, for example, the auroras, those shimmering curtains of green, purple, and red that ripple across the polar skies. To modern science, they are the result of charged solar particles colliding with Earth's magnetic field, painting the heavens in ghostly light. But for thousands of years, they were regarded as messages from beyond. The Norse saw them as reflections of Valkyries riding across the night, guiding warriors to the afterlife. Indigenous peoples of North America believed they were the spirits of ancestors dancing above. Even today, standing beneath an aurora can feel otherworldly, as if Earth itself is alive and speaking in light. These spectacles remind us that the skies are not empty. They are alive with forces both natural and mysterious, forces that sometimes hint at more than science alone can explain. But auroras are only the beginning. Across the planet, there are places where compasses spin erratically, where planes and ships vanish under puzzling circumstances, where the atmosphere itself seems unstable. The Bermuda Triangle is perhaps the most famous example. Stretching between Florida, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico, it has been blamed for countless disappearances over the decades. Aircraft vanish from radar, ships are found drifting without crew, and navigational instruments malfunction without warning. Skeptics dismiss these as coincidences or exaggerated tales, yet the sheer persistence of such reports keeps the legend alive. Some suggest magnetic anomalies in the region interfere with equipment. Others argue that undersea methane eruptions could destabilize vessels, while conspiracy theorists whisper of portals or gateways hidden in the atmosphere itself. Whether science can fully explain it or not, the Bermuda Triangle remains a place where the sky and sea seem to conspire to create mystery. And then there are the strange sounds of the sky phenomena known as sky trumpets, or the hum. Across the world, people have reported hearing eerie metallic tones reverberating from above, sounds with no visible source. These hums have been recorded in Canada, Ukraine, the United States, and countless other places, leaving witnesses unsettled and afraid. Some suggest natural causes, shifting tectonic plates, atmospheric pressure, or industrial noise bouncing in unusual ways. Others believe these are signals perhaps connected to extraterrestrial or deep within Earth itself. What makes them unnerving is their unpredictability. They come without warning, vanish without trace, and leave only confusion in their wake. If the sky itself can sing, What exactly is it trying to say? Beyond the strange sounds are the even stranger lights. For centuries, people have reported orbs hovering in the sky, moving in ways that defy physics. Some are explained as ball lightning, a rare and poorly understood phenomenon where glowing spheres of plasma drift unpredictably. Others remain unexplained, especially when witnessed by pilots, sailors, or entire communities. These mysterious lights have been called everything from will-o'-the-wisps to UFOs, their meaning shifting with the culture and the time. Yet the common thread is clear. The sky is not as empty as we want to believe. Something, whether natural, technological, or unknown, moves above us beyond our comprehension. Even weather itself can take on an eerie edge. Consider the phenomenon of red sprites and blue jets, massive lightning-like discharges that shoot upwards into the stratosphere, invisible to the naked eye but captured by specialized cameras. For years, pilots spoke of seeing strange flashes above thunderstorms, only to be dismissed by scientists. Now we know these phenomena are real, towering electrical storms reaching into the upper atmosphere. They serve as reminders that even the weather, which we take for granted as understood, still hides surprises waiting to be discovered. Eclipses, too, have always carried an air of unease. Imagine being an ancient human, watching the sun vanish in the middle of the day, darkness swallowing the land while animals panic and silence falls. To us, eclipses are predictable events, carefully charted by astronomers, but to countless cultures they were omens of doom, signs that the gods were angry or that catastrophe loomed. Even today, standing beneath a total solar eclipse evokes primal emotions, the sense that the universe has shifted, that we are momentarily vulnerable to forces beyond our control. And then there are the celestial visitors, comets and meteors that streak across the night sky. In modern times, they are spectacles of beauty, but to ancient civilizations they were harbingers of disaster, signs that empires would fall and rulers would die. History is filled with examples. The fall of Rome, the death of kings, wars and plagues, all linked in memory, if not in fact, to the sudden appearance of a comet. And perhaps those fears were not misplaced. After all, it was a massive asteroid that ended the reign of the dinosaurs, altering Earth's history forever. The sky does not just inspire wonder, it also delivers extinction. Even now, the skies continue to present mysteries we cannot fully explain. Unidentified aerial phenomena, once dismissed as imagination or deception, are now openly acknowledged by governments as objects or entities behaving in ways beyond our current technology. They accelerate without sound, change direction instantly, vanish into the ocean, or climb into the heavens with impossible speed. Whether they are advanced technology, natural phenomena, or something else entirely, the fact remains, the sky above us is filled with mysteries that defy simple answers. And perhaps that is the most humbling truth. The skies we gaze at daily, the same skies we think we understand, continue to reveal surprises. They are not just a backdrop for life on Earth. They are active participants in it, shaping history, inspiring myths, and sometimes destroying entire worlds. If the oceans conceal forgotten civilizations and the Earth hides potential realms beneath, then the skies remind us that we are always at the mercy of forces far greater than ourselves. What ties these mysteries together is not just their strangeness, but their persistence. From auroras that once terrified villagers to UFOs that baffle military pilots, the sky has never been fully explained. It remains a frontier, both familiar and alien, both beautiful and threatening. It reminds us of our smallness, of our inability to control everything, of the fact that the universe above us does not owe us clarity. And yet, even as we marvel at the heavens, Earth itself is never silent. For just as the skies reveal their mysteries, the ground below reminds us of its power through disasters that reshape history. Because if the heavens command our imagination, the earth beneath demands our survival. And what humanity has endured at the hands of natural disasters is a story just as shocking, just as haunting, and just as filled with warnings about the fragility of our existence. If the skies above inspire awe and fear, then the earth beneath us reminds us constantly that our existence is not guaranteed. For as long as humanity has lived upon this planet, disasters have come without warning, striking with a force that humbles kings and levels empires. Floods, earthquakes, eruptions, storms. These are not just random acts of nature, but events that have carved their names into history, altering civilizations and reshaping our world. Each catastrophe tells us something about the fragility of human life and the power of the earth itself. They are teachers, though harsh ones, forcing us to confront truths we would rather ignore, that we are guests here, not masters, and that survival often depends on our humility in the face of forces greater than ourselves. Consider the great flood myths that appear across nearly every culture. To the Sumerians, it was the story of Ziusudra saved from rising waters by divine warning. To the Hebrews, it was Noah building an ark to carry life through the deluge. To the Hindus, it was Manu warned by a fish to preserve humanity. Even Native American tribes tell of floods that swallowed the land and forced their ancestors to begin anew. At first glance, these may appear as symbolic tales of cleansing and rebirth, but modern geology suggests something more tangible. At the end of the last ice age, melting glaciers unleashed torrents of water across the continents. Sea levels rose hundreds of feet, drowning coastlines and wiping away the first human settlements along the shore. What people remembered as divine wrath may have been the scars of real floods, so massive they reshaped continents. These floods taught humanity one of its earliest lessons, that the ground beneath us is never truly stable, and that the waters can reclaim what they gave at any moment. Volcanoes are another brutal reminder. Few disasters strike with such sudden and devastating power. In 79 CE, Mount Vesuvius erupted without mercy, burying the Roman cities of Pompeii and Herculaneum beneath ash and molten rock. People were frozen in their final moments, preserved in stone as if to remind us forever of the fragility of life. Centuries later, Krakatoa exploded in 1883 with a force so great it was heard 3,000 miles away. The eruption generated tsunamis that killed tens of thousands and sent so much ash into the atmosphere that sunsets turned blood red around the globe. The planet itself seemed to mourn, painting the sky with the memory of its own violence. These eruptions were not isolated tragedies. They were messages, showing us that beneath the surface of the Earth is a power we cannot control, one that can alter the climate, reshape geography, and erase entire societies overnight. And what of earthquakes? In 1556, an earthquake in China killed an estimated 830,000 people, one of the deadliest disasters in history. In 1906, San Francisco was reduced to rubble, its fires raging for days after the ground stopped shaking. More recently, quakes in Haiti and Japan remind us that no matter how advanced we become, no building is truly safe when the Earth decides to shift. The ground we take for granted as solid can in an instant become liquid, swallowing roads, tilting skyscrapers, and turning cities into ruins. Earthquakes remind us of the fragility of permanence, that stability is an illusion maintained only until the Earth decides otherwise. Tsunamis are disasters of another kind, born from earthquakes and eruptions beneath the sea. The Indian Ocean tsunami of 2004 killed more than 200,000 people across 14 countries, sweeping entire villages into the sea in minutes. Survivors spoke of walls of water as tall as buildings, roaring with the sound of a freight train. In that moment, humanity's illusion of control was stripped away, revealing just how small we truly are. For ancient peoples, such events would have seemed divine, the sea itself rising to claim what was once its own. Today we understand the mechanics, but the terror remains the same. A tsunami is not just water, it is the weight of an entire ocean moving with unstoppable force, a reminder that what nourishes us can also destroy us. Even storms, those seemingly common events, have shaped history. Hurricanes have toppled empires, destroyed armies, and rewritten maps. The divine wind or kamikaze typhoons of the 13th century destroyed Kublai Khan's fleets, saving Japan from Mongol invasion. Centuries later, hurricanes ravaged the Caribbean, reshaping colonial empires and scattering fleets. In our own time, storms like Katrina and Haiyan remind us that nature does not discriminate, striking rich and poor alike, toppling both fragile villages and powerful cities. The wind itself can become a weapon of earth, teaching us humility and forcing us to adapt or perish. But not all disasters are remembered for their destruction alone. Some altered the course of life itself. The Chicxulub impact, the asteroid strike that ended the reign of the dinosaurs 66 million years ago, is perhaps the most dramatic example. A single moment of cosmic violence wiped out the dominant species of the planet and cleared the way for mammals to rise. Without that disaster, humanity may never have existed at all. Disasters, then, are not always the end. Sometimes they are beginnings, forcing evolution, reshaping life, and reminding us that even extinction can be a doorway to something new. Yellowstone in the United States sits atop a supervolcano capable of global catastrophe. While dormant for now, it has erupted before, blanketing continents in ash and altering climates worldwide. Scientists warn that if it erupts again, the consequences would be unimaginable: global famine, mass extinctions, and perhaps the collapse of civilization. We comfort ourselves with the thought that such an eruption is unlikely in our lifetimes, but that is the cruel trick of Earth's disasters. They are always unlikely until the day they happen. What disasters reveal is not only the power of Earth, but the vulnerability of humanity. No empire has stood immune. The Minoans, among the earliest advanced civilizations in Europe, may have been undone by the eruption of Thera, their fleets destroyed by tsunamis. The Maya faced cycles of drought that eroded their power. The ancestral Puebloans abandoned their great cliff cities, likely driven by years of famine and changing climate. Again and again, nature has shown us that survival is not about dominance but adaptability. Those who listen to Earth, who respect its rhythms and prepare for its wrath, endure. Those who ignore the warnings, who grow arrogant in their control. And yet, disasters also shape culture and belief. They inspire myths of angry gods, stories of cleansing floods, and prophecies of fiery ends. They remind us of mortality, fueling art, religion, and philosophy. Without disasters, humanity might never have developed the humility that underpins wisdom. The earth itself has been our sternest teacher, punishing but also shaping us into the resilient species we are today. Still, the question lingers: are we learning? Climate change is now fueling stronger storms, more intense fires, rising seas, and shifting patterns of disaster. In some ways, we are repeating the mistakes of past civilizations, building cities in vulnerable places, ignoring the warnings written in the ruins of those who came before. If disasters are teachers, then the lessons are clear. Respect the earth, adapt to its changes, and never assume mastery over forces beyond comprehension. Whether we listen will determine not only our survival but our legacy. And perhaps that is the deepest mystery of all. Disasters are not simply random acts of violence. They may be Earth's way of reminding us who truly holds power. They may be the planet's voice, telling us again and again that this world is not ours alone, that to live here is to accept fragility. And as we carry those lessons forward, we begin to see that even beyond disasters, Earth's greatest secrets may not lie in its violence, but in the knowledge we've lost along the way, wisdom buried, burned, or forgotten, waiting for us to rediscover. If Earth's disasters teach us about humility in the face of nature, then humanity's own story teaches us a different kind of tragedy: the loss of knowledge. For every monument that still stands, for every ancient text that has survived, there are countless others that have vanished, burned in flames, drowned in floods, or buried beneath layers of soil and time. Civilization is fragile, and knowledge even more so. Across history, moments of brilliance have been followed by moments of silence, as entire worlds of wisdom were erased in an instant. It is a sobering thought: how much have we lost? And what truths might those vanished records have revealed about the world, the universe, and even ourselves? One of the most infamous examples is the Library of Alexandria, built in Egypt over 2,000 years ago. It was said to contain hundreds of thousands of scrolls, collected from across the known world. Ships entering the harbour were required to surrender their writings so that copies could be made, preserving every scrap of wisdom humanity had gathered. Mathematics, astronomy, philosophy, medicine, engineering, all may have been there, stored in one of the greatest repositories of knowledge ever assembled, and then it was lost. Accounts differ on how it was destroyed. Some blame Julius Caesar's siege. Others suggest multiple fires over centuries. But the truth is that humanity's greatest library simply disappeared. What ideas were lost in that blaze? Did it contain maps of lands we have not rediscovered, secrets of lost civilizations, advanced technologies, millennia before their time? We may never know, but the silence left behind is deafening. The story of Alexandria is not unique. Across the globe, centers of learning and records of civilizations have been erased. In China, the infamous burning of books and burying of scholars under Emperor Qin Shi Huang saw countless texts destroyed, eliminating much of what earlier dynasties had written. In the Americas, when Spanish conquerors arrived, they burned Maya codices, erasing centuries of astronomy, mathematics, and history. Only 4 survive today, fragments of a much larger intellectual tradition. What they reveal is astonishing. The Maya tracked Venus with incredible accuracy, developed calendars that spanned thousands of years, and built an understanding of time that rivals anything in the ancient world. Yet most of their records are gone, reduced to ash under the flames of conquest. Even in places where knowledge survived in part, the gaps are haunting. Ancient maps like the Piri Reis map of 1513, created from even older sources, show coastlines that should not have been known at the time. Antarctica appears ice-free, suggesting the map drew on records from a civilization that saw the continent long before it froze over. Mainstream historians dismiss this as coincidence or misinterpretation, but the mystery lingers. If advanced seafaring cultures existed before the civilizations we know, their records have been erased, leaving behind only anomalies we struggle to explain. Technology, too, hints at lost wisdom. The Antikythera mechanism, discovered in a shipwreck off Greece, is a complex device of gears and dials used to predict astronomical events. Dated to over 2,000 years ago, it is often called the world's first computer. For centuries, historians believed ancient cultures could not create machinery of such sophistication. Yet here it is, proof that advanced engineering existed long before we gave credit. If one such device survived, how many others were lost? How many inventions, ideas, and breakthroughs were buried with their creators, never to be passed on? And then there are the monuments, silent teachers built from stone. Machu Picchu, Sacsayhuaman, Baalbek, Göbekli Tepe. Each defies easy explanation. The precision of the stonework, the scale of the construction, the astronomical alignments, all suggest knowledge of engineering, geometry, and astronomy, far ahead of what we assume for their time. How did they cut and transport stones weighing hundreds of tons without modern machines? How did they align structures perfectly with solstices and star systems? We are left with speculation, trial and error, genius lost to time, or fragments of a deeper knowledge that once flowed across cultures, but was severed by catastrophe. The loss of knowledge is not always the result of disaster or conquest. Sometimes it fades quietly, forgotten as generations pass. Oral traditions that carried histories for millennia are dismissed as myth, even when geological evidence later proves their truth. Indigenous stories of great floods or fiery skies are often echoes of real events, preserved not in books but in memory. Yet when those traditions are silenced or ignored, humanity loses more than just tales. It loses living links to its past. In this way, entire archives of human experience have been erased, not by fire or flood, but by neglect. Why does this matter? Because knowledge is not just about the past, it is about possibility. Imagine if the Library of Alexandria had survived. We might have reached the Industrial Revolution centuries earlier. Space travel might have begun in the Middle Ages. Diseases could have been cured long before they spread. Instead, we live in the shadow of what might have been, piecing together fragments of lost wisdom, while wondering how different our world could look if humanity had managed to hold on to its treasures. But perhaps the most unsettling idea is that some knowledge was not lost by accident, but hidden deliberately. Across cultures, there are stories of secret teachings, of wisdom too dangerous for the unprepared. Mystical traditions speak of hidden libraries, guarded texts, or underground chambers where the knowledge of the ancients still waits. Conspiracies flourish around the Vatican's archives, around suppressed discoveries in archaeology, around governments hiding evidence of human history that does not fit the accepted narrative. Whether true or not, the persistence of these beliefs reveals something important. Deep down, we sense that our story is incomplete, that someone, somewhere, knows more than we are told. What knowledge have we truly lost? How much of our potential lies buried in ruins, burned in fires, or drowned in rising seas? These questions remind us that civilization is fragile, that wisdom is as perishable as flesh, and that humanity may have risen and fallen many times before. We think of ourselves as advanced, but what if we are merely rebuilding fragments of what was once known? What if the great breakthroughs we celebrate today are echoes of ideas already discovered, forgotten, and rediscovered countless times in cycles of rise and collapse? The silence of lost knowledge is haunting because it is permanent. Once gone, wisdom rarely returns in its original form. But it also serves as a challenge. Each ruin, each artifact, each anomaly is an invitation to look deeper, to question more, to resist the temptation of assuming we already know everything. Because the truth is, we don't. Earth has seen more than we can imagine, and it has erased more than we can ever recover. And just as we ponder what has been lost, we must also consider what remains, not just in stones or texts, but in myths and traditions, because even when knowledge is erased, its essence sometimes survives in story, in ritual, in the way cultures see the earth itself. And when we begin to pay attention to those myths, we may discover that Earth's mysteries are not confined to the past. They are encoded in the way humanity has always seen the planet as alive, as divine, as a presence greater than ourselves. And that is where the next chapter begins. For as long as humanity has existed, we have tried to explain the world around us. And long before science gave us names like tectonic plates or atmospheric pressure, we told story. Myths were not just entertainment. They were maps of meaning, ways of understanding forces too vast to grasp in logical terms. To our ancestors, Earth was not an object or a rock drifting through space. It was alive, conscious, powerful, and sometimes unpredictable. They gave it names, personalities, moods, and stories, because to live with such a force you had to make sense of it in human terms. These myths may seem like fantasies now, but when we look closer they contain fragments of truth, echoes of real events, and insights into how deeply Earth has always shaped human imagination. In Greek mythology, Earth was Gaia, the primordial mother who gave birth to all life. She was both nurturing and dangerous, embodying the duality of the planet itself. The Greeks saw earthquakes as the work of Poseidon, storms as the rage of Zeus, and volcanic eruptions as the anger of Hephaestus forging weapons beneath the ground. These weren't random tales. They were attempts to explain natural disasters in a way that made sense, giving them agency and purpose. By turning Earth's violence into stories of gods, humans could find meaning in chaos and remind themselves that survival required respect for forces greater than their own. The Norse had Ymer, a giant whose body was carved into the world itself, flesh becoming soil, blood becoming seas, bones becoming mountains. For them, Earth was not merely created, it was sacrificed into existence. That perspective reflects a profound awareness of life's cycle, where creation and destruction are bound together. Even Ragnarok, the Norse end of the world, was framed not as permanent annihilation, but as a cycle of renewal, where Earth would be reborn after fire and flood. The myth mirrors geological truths we now know. The planet has been remade many times, through cataclysms that wiped the slate clean before life began again. In Hindu traditions, Earth is Bhumi Devi, the goddess of the ground itself, revered as mother and provider. Stories tell of Vishnu lifting Earth from primordial waters, echoing ancient flood memories. Earth is sacred, not just a place to live, but a being to honor, with rituals tied to agriculture, fertility, and balance. The respect encoded in these myths reflects a truth. Science now affirms life is only possible because of Earth's delicate systems, from soil fertility to climate stability. Disrespecting those systems brings ruin, a lesson ancient cultures understood intuitively through myth. Among Native American traditions, Earth is often described as a mother figure, a living being who provides for her children, but also demands balance and respect. Many tribes tell stories of animals shaping the land, like the Muskogee tale of Earth Diver, where a water creature brings mud from beneath the sea to form land. Others, like the Navajo, describe earth and sky as parents, their union giving rise to all life. These myths do more than explain origins. They encode values of stewardship, teaching generations that Earth is not to be owned but to be cared for. In a way, these ancient perspectives are more advanced than many modern ones, reminding us that sustainability is not a new idea, but an ancient truth. Even the myths of fire and destruction carry hidden wisdom. The Maori of New Zealand tell of Roa Moko, the god of earthquakes and volcanoes, still moving in the Earth's belly, to live in a land shaped by volcanic eruptions and seismic activity. Such myths provided both explanation and preparation. People understood through story that the land was alive and unpredictable. Similarly, in Japan, earthquakes were explained as the threshing of Namazu, the giant catfish trapped beneath the islands. The image may seem whimsical, but it served a vital purpose. It reminded people to expect the unexpected, to prepare for the shaking ground that could come at any time. Flood myths are perhaps the most universal of all, appearing in cultures from Mesopotamia to Mesoamerica, from Africa to Australia. Some describe gods punishing humanity, others speak of cleansing or renewal. The common thread is clear: water rising, land vanishing, and survivors tasked with beginning again. Modern science suggests these stories may be rooted in real events: rising seas at the end of the Ice Age, massive floods from melting glaciers, or tsunamis triggered by quakes and eruptions. What we once called myth may in fact be memory, carried across millennia, wrapped in symbolism, but grounded in truth. What is striking about these myths is not only their diversity, but their similarities. Cultures separated by oceans, with no contact, tell stories that echo one another. Floods destroying worlds, giants forming landscapes, Earth itself seen as a parent or living being. It suggests that no matter where humans lived, the awe and mystery of the planet inspired the same need to explain, to connect, to find meaning. And in that shared storytelling lies evidence that myth is not ignorance but wisdom expressed differently, a recognition that Earth's power is both creative and destructive. Even today, myth continues to shape how we see Earth. We may speak in scientific terms now, but our language still borrows from old patterns. We say Earth heals, storms have fury, the ground hungers for rain. Our metaphors reveal that, deep down, we still personify the planet, still see it as more than inert matter. Some might dismiss this as poetic habit, but perhaps it points to something deeper, that instinctively humans have always sensed Earth is alive in ways science is only beginning to describe. After all, ecosystems act like organs, climates shift like moods, and the planet regulates itself as if it were a living system. Myths may have been closer to the truth than we give them credit for. At their core, myths about Earth serve as warnings as well as explanations. They remind us that arrogance leads to downfall, that disrespecting balance brings catastrophe. Whether it is Gaia punishing mortals or gods unleashing floods, or spirits stirring volcanoes, the moral is often the same: live with respect or suffer the consequences. These are not just stories of the past, they are lessons for the present, as we face crises of climate and environment that mirror the warnings told in myths thousands of years old. What makes Earth's myths so powerful is that they endure. Unlike libraries that burn or monuments that crumble, myths are carried in the human voice, passed from parent to child, adapting but surviving. Even when written records vanish, the stories persist, whispering across centuries, shaping how people see their world. They are the oldest memory we possess, the first attempt at understanding the planet we call home. And when we listen to them now, with modern knowledge in hand, we may discover that myths are not relics of ignorance, but echoes of truths too big to express any other way. So the question becomes, if myths contain fragments of truth, what more might they still reveal? Are there lessons in their symbolism that we have not yet decoded? Could the stories of giants and gods be distorted memories of real events, catastrophes, or even encounters we no longer understand? To dismiss myth is to dismiss the oldest human effort to make sense of Earth's mystery. To embrace it is to realize that the story of Earth is not only written in stone and science, it is sung in stories, whispered in legends, painted in symbols, and remembered in dreams. For centuries, humans saw Earth as alive in myth and metaphor, but modern science has given new language to this ancient intuition. In the 1970s, chemist James Lovelock and microbiologist Lynn Margulis proposed what became known as the Gaia hypothesis, the idea that Earth itself behaves like a living organism, regulating its systems to sustain life. At first, the scientific community dismissed the idea as poetic nonsense, a metaphor at best. But as evidence accumulated, the concept gained traction. Today, many scientists recognize that while Earth is not alive in the way a human or animal is, it functions as a self-regulating system with uncanny precision. And the more we look, the more the line between metaphor and reality blurs, forcing us to reconsider whether the planet is more alive than we've dared to admit. Think about it. Earth's atmosphere is unlike any other we've observed in the solar system. Instead of being dominated by carbon dioxide like Venus or Mars, it contains a delicate balance of nitrogen, oxygen, carbon, and trace gases. That balance is not static. It is actively maintained by living organisms. Plants produce oxygen through photosynthesis, animals and microbes consume it, and the carbon cycle ties it all together. The oceans act as vast carbon sinks, pulling excess greenhouse gases from the air, while weather patterns redistribute heat to prevent extremes. These systems are interconnected in ways that mirror the functions of a body, the forests as lungs, the rivers as blood vessels, the atmosphere as breath, and the crust as skin. The Earth seems to breathe, circulate, heal, and adapt. To call it dead matter feels increasingly inadequate. The Gaia hypothesis goes further, suggesting that life is not simply a passenger on Earth but an active participant in shaping its conditions. Microbes deep within the crust influence mineral cycles, coral reefs regulate carbon levels, algae blooms can shift global weather, even tiny phytoplankton in the sea release compounds that seed clouds, literally shaping the sky above us. In this view, Earth is not just a stage for life, it is life itself, with every species a cell in its larger body. When seen this way, the extinction of species is not just a tragedy of biodiversity, it is the loss of organs in a living system, each one critical to maintaining balance. What makes this idea powerful is that it redefines humanity's place in the story. We are not separate from Earth. Observing it as outsiders, we are part of its body, dependent on its health and contributing to its function, for better or worse. Yet, unlike microbes or trees, humans carry a dangerous trait, the illusion of separation. We act as though we are above Earth's systems, bending them to our will, extracting without limit, reshaping landscapes without thought to the consequences. And yet, when climate shifts, when seas rise, when droughts spread, we are reminded that we are not controllers, but cells gone rogue, threatening the very organism that sustains us. If Earth is alive, then humanity may be behaving like a disease, an infection testing the resilience of its host. But here's the twist. Earth fights back. When balance tips too far, the planet responds with regulation mechanisms. Rising carbon leads to feedback loops, like forests absorbing more or oceans sequestering carbon and sediments. When humans pump pollutants into the atmosphere, rainfall patterns shift, altering where crops grow and forcing adaptation. These mechanisms may not be conscious in the way we think of intention, but they reveal a kind of intelligence, an ability to adjust, to correct, to restore balance. The irony is that Earth may well survive whatever damage humanity inflicts, but we may not. In other words, Gaia can endure without us, but we cannot endure without her. Ancient cultures sensed this long before science gave it a name. Indigenous traditions across the world describe Earth as a mother, alive and breathing, responding to how she is treated. In Andean cultures, Pachamama is the living goddess of Earth, demanding respect through ritual and balance. In Native American traditions, Earth is not a resource but a relative, bound by kinship rather than ownership. These perspectives align eerily well with the Gaia hypothesis, suggesting that ancient wisdom intuited truths science is only now catching up to. Perhaps our ancestors were not naive in seeing Earth as alive. They were observant in ways we have forgotten. Skeptics argue that Earth is not truly alive because it lacks consciousness, will, or intent. But this assumes that life must look like us to count. A tree does not walk or speak, yet it is alive. A coral reef is not a single organism, yet it functions as one. Why then should Earth be any different? The boundaries of life are not as rigid as we pretend. Already, scientists are beginning to speak of planetary intelligence, the collective ability of life and geology to maintain stability. Perhaps consciousness itself is not confined to individual brains, but emerges at larger scales. If so, Earth may be aware in ways we cannot measure, perceiving time in cycles of millions of years rather than fleeting human decades. The idea of Earth as alive changes more than science. It changes morality. If the planet is a living being, then exploitation becomes not just dangerous but immoral, akin to harming a parent or sibling. Suddenly, environmental destruction is not about resources lost, but wounds inflicted. Suddenly, stewardship is not a choice but a responsibility owed to a greater whole. This perspective could transform how we see everything from energy to food to economy, if we chose to embrace it. Yet the tragedy is that most of humanity still sees Earth as an object, not a being, and in doing so we blind ourselves to the consequences of our actions. And yet, there is hope. The very fact that Earth has endured billions of years of change suggests resilience far beyond our imagination. Life has survived asteroid impacts, ice ages, and volcanic winters. Each time, it adapts, reshapes, and continues. If Earth is alive, then it is not fragile, but powerful, capable of rebirth even after catastrophe. Our role, then, is not to save Earth. It does not need saving, but to save ourselves by learning to live in harmony with the living system we depend on. Because if we fail, Earth will continue without us, as it has continued without countless species before. The Gaia hypothesis is not just a scientific theory, it is a mirror, showing us who we are in relation to the planet. It tells us that we are not masters but participants, not separate but entangled. It challenges us to see Earth not as backdrop but as protagonist, the central character in a story we have only just begun to understand. And as we look deeper into its systems, as we uncover mysteries in its oceans, its crust, its skies, we may find that the line between science and myth, between metaphor and truth, is not as wide as we thought. Earth may not only be alive, it may be speaking, regulating, remembering, and evolving in ways we are only beginning to hear. And so the question remains, if Earth is alive, what does it want from us? Are we meant to be caretakers, allies, or simply another experiment in the grand cycle of life? Perhaps the answer lies not in conquering the planet, but in listening, truly listening to the rhythms of Earth itself. Because in its winds, in its tides, in its quakes and eruptions, Gaia is telling us something. The real mystery is whether we are wise enough to understand before it is too late. When we think about the future of humanity, we often picture colonies on Mars, sprawling cities in space, or technological utopias free from the constraints of our planet. Yet the reality we cannot escape is that, for all our dreams of leaving, Earth remains the only home we truly have. Our destiny is bound to it, as inseparable as breath from body. The question is not whether Earth will survive. It has weathered asteroid strikes, volcanic winters, and ice ages. The question is whether humanity can survive its own choices, whether we can learn to live in balance with the planet that sustains us. Our fate is written in Earth's rhythms, and if we ignore them, the consequences will be nothing short of catastrophic. Already the warnings are clear. Climate change is no longer a distant threat, but a present reality. Rising seas eat away at coastlines, swallowing the very places where humans built their greatest cities. Storms grow stronger, droughts last longer, fires rage more fiercely than any in recorded history. Glaciers that stood for millennia vanish in decades, leaving behind silence where once there was ice. These changes are not natural cycles alone. They are fueled by human action, by industries and choices that tip the balance faster than Earth's systems can compensate. For the first time in history, a single species has become a geological force, altering the very climate and chemistry of the planet. We call this era the Anthropocene, the age of humans, but it may also be our undoing if we fail to recognize its weight. Our destiny with Earth is fragile because we depend on systems we barely understand. The atmosphere must remain within a narrow band of balance for life to flourish. Oceans must circulate heat and nutrients in patterns that maintain ecosystems. Forests must breathe carbon in and oxygen out at just the right pace. When we destabilize one system, it cascades through the others. This fragility is both terrifying and humbling. We are not as powerful as we imagine. A shift of a few degrees in temperature, a rise of a few meters in sea level, a collapse of key ecosystems, and the civilization we built so confidently could unravel in ways we cannot control. But fragility is not the whole story. Fragility also creates opportunity, because it forces us to choose. Unlike the dinosaurs, who were blindsided by an asteroid, humanity has awareness. We can read the signals, study the data, and foresee possible futures. We know what rising carbon will do. We know what deforestation will cost. We know what happens when ecosystems collapse. Knowledge gives us power, but only if we act. The real test of our species is not whether we can dream of leaving Earth, but whether we can learn to live wisely upon it. Our destiny may not be to escape this planet, but to finally understand it and to find our place within its cycles rather than against them. Technology offers hope, but it is a double-edged blade. Renewable energy, carbon capture, sustainable agriculture, these innovations could help restore balance. Yet technology also tempts us into arrogance, into believing we can engineer our way out of every problem without changing our behavior. The truth is that no machine can replace the forests. No invention can fully replicate the complexity of the oceans. No algorithm can substitute for the millions of interdependent species that keep Earth alive. We can supplement, but we cannot substitute. Our relationship with Earth must be rooted not only in innovation, but in humility, in the recognition that we are part of a system more intricate than any we can design. And yet, even as Earth warns us with rising seas and burning skies, there are glimpses of resilience. Forests regenerate when given time, species return when habitats are restored, and even polluted rivers can cleanse themselves if the pressure is lifted. Earth is not just fragile, it is forgiving if we allow it. This forgiveness may be our greatest chance. The window is small, the time short, but it remains open. Our destiny is not yet sealed, though it narrows with every passing year. The challenge is whether humanity can see itself not as conqueror but as caretaker, whether we can shift from extraction to restoration before the balance tips beyond repair. But what if we fail? What if humanity ignores the warnings, as so many civilizations before us did, and collapses under the weight of its own hubris? Earth will continue. The seas will rise, swallowing coastlines, deserts will expand, forests will wither, and countless species, including perhaps our own, will vanish. In a few million years, new forms of life will emerge, shaped by the ruins we left behind. Civilizations may come and go again, and Earth will carry on, indifferent to our fall. In this scenario, our destiny is tragic, not because the planet dies, but because we squandered the rare chance to coexist with it wisely. We would become another cautionary tale etched into Earth's memory, one more example of a species that could not find balance. And yet, there is another possibility, one that whispers of hope. What if humanity learns? What if we take the lessons of myth, of history, of science, and weave them into a new story, one where Earth is not a resource but a partner? Imagine a civilization built not on endless consumption, but on harmony with natural cycles. Imagine cities powered by renewable energy, designed to coexist with ecosystems instead of replacing them. Imagine societies that measure success not by wealth or conquest, but by balance, resilience, and the health of the living planet. This vision is not a fantasy. It is a choice, one that grows more urgent each day. The fragility of our future lies in its uncertainty. We are at a crossroads unlike any in history, with the tools to either destroy or restore, to collapse or to thrive. Our ancestors told myths of floods and fire to warn of imbalance. Our scientists now offer data and models that carry the same message. The Earth has always spoken. We simply choose whether or not to listen. If we listen, if we act, our destiny could be one of renewal. If we ignore it, our story may end sooner than we think. Perhaps the ultimate truth is that Earth will decide our destiny not through wrath or revenge, but through balance. The planet has always sought equilibrium, and it will find it again, with or without us. The only question is whether humanity will choose to be part of that balance, or an obstacle to it. To be part of Earth's future, we must recognize that the story of humanity is inseparable from the story of the planet itself. Our survival, our flourishing, our very meaning depends on the choices we make now, in this fragile moment. And so, our destiny with Earth is both a warning and an invitation. A warning that the path we walk is unsustainable, but also an invitation to create something better, something lasting. We stand on the edge of possibility, looking out at futures both dark and bright. The Earth does not beg or bargain, it simply is. The rest is up to us. The story of Earth took a dramatic turn when humanity began to look beyond the familiar horizons of its valleys, rivers, and mountains, and dared to venture into the unknown. For thousands of years, most societies lived within the boundaries of what they could see and touch, shaping myths and maps around their immediate world. But the age of exploration shattered those boundaries, changing not only geography but the way humans thought about Earth itself. In the 15th and 16th centuries, as ships set sail into oceans thought to be endless and dangerous, humanity discovered not just new lands, but the vastness and interconnectedness of the planet. It was the beginning of a new kind of awareness. Earth was no longer infinite mystery, but a finite sphere, immense yet measurable, fragile yet whole. Before explorers ever crossed oceans, humanity imagined what lay beyond through myth. Medieval European maps, for example, depicted strange creatures at the edges, from sea serpents to lands of giants. The unknown was often drawn as monstrous, reflecting both fear and fascination. But as explorers like Columbus, Magellan, and Zheng He expanded the boundaries of the known world, those blank spaces began to fill with coastlines, mountains, and rivers. Each voyage redrew Earth in the human imagination. Suddenly, continents were connected, seas linked, and the planet itself began to shrink, not in size but in perception. What once felt infinite became finite, a place that could be mapped, measured, and eventually conquered. This new vision of Earth brought both awe and arrogance. Awe, because the sheer diversity of landscapes, peoples, and creatures revealed a planet richer and more varied than anyone had imagined. Arrogance, because with knowledge came conquest, as empires claimed lands, resources, and lives in the name of discovery. The age of exploration was not just about charting coastlines, it was about rewriting humanity's relationship with Earth. It turned the unknown into the known, the foreign into the familiar, and in doing so, it shifted humanity from seeing Earth as an unfathomable mystery to seeing it as a possession to be claimed. Yet even amid conquest, the discoveries themselves were staggering. Imagine the shock of Europeans encountering the vast jungles of the Amazon, teeming with species unknown to science. Imagine the awe of sailors rounding Cape Horn, battling seas so wild they seemed alive. Imagine standing at the edge of the Grand Canyon, realizing the Earth's age carved into stone before your eyes. Every discovery was a revelation, forcing humans to expand, not only their maps but their minds. The diversity of Earth became undeniable. Different climates, ecosystems, and cultures proved that the planet was not uniform, but a mosaic, a living tapestry woven across continents. But the age of exploration did more than redraw maps. It redefined humanity's place in the cosmos. When Magellan's expedition circumnavigated the globe, proving that Earth was not just round in theory but in practice, the planet became something different in human thought. No longer infinite or flat, Earth was a sphere, limited, complete, and fragile. To circle it was to realize that it had edges, that it was finite in ways myths never suggested. This realization planted a seed that would bloom centuries later, when astronauts looked back from space and saw Earth as a blue marble floating in darkness. The age of exploration was the first step toward that planetary perspective, the awareness that we live not on endless land, but on a bounded world. Yet with discovery came destruction. The expansion of maps often meant the erasure of cultures. Indigenous knowledge of Earth, accumulated for millennia, was dismissed, suppressed, or lost. Forests were cut, species hunted, and lands reshaped to fit foreign economy. The irony is painful. While explorers marveled at the richness of Earth, they simultaneously exploited it, leaving scars that still shape our world. The Amazon, once seen as impenetrable, became a frontier for extraction. Islands across the Pacific, once pristine, became stepping stones for empires. In the rush to know the Earth, much of its wisdom was silent. Still, the age of exploration revealed truths that echo today. It showed that Earth is interconnected. Oceans link continents, winds carry ships, and currents circle the globe. Trade routes revealed the planet's circulatory system, connecting places once isolated. Plants, animals, and diseases traveled with explorers, changing ecosystems forever. The so-called Columbian Exchange reshaped diets, economies, and populations worldwide. Potatoes from the Andes fed Europe. Horses transformed Native America, and diseases devastated indigenous peoples. Earth revealed itself as a single, interdependent system, long before science would frame it as the Gaia hypothesis. Exploration taught humanity, often harshly, that nothing on this planet exists in isolation. Exploration also revealed the extremes of Earth, the frozen wastes of the Arctic, the storms of the tropics, the deserts stretching farther than imagination. These discoveries shattered the notion of a uniform world. Instead, Earth was revealed as a place of contrasts, of diversity beyond comprehension. That diversity sparked both wonder and fear. Some explorers returned with tales of paradise, lush islands with fruits dripping from trees, landscapes that seemed Edenic. Others returned with stories of terror, jungles so thick they swallowed men, storms that sank fleets, mountains so high they pierced the heavens. Earth was revealed as both generous and merciless, both nurturing and cruel. Perhaps most importantly, exploration forced humanity to confront limits. For the first time, people began to realize that Earth was not inexhaustible. Resources could be depleted, species could vanish, and lands could be scarred beyond repair. While these lessons were often ignored in the rush for wealth and empire, the seeds were planted. The awareness of fragility, faint at first, would grow louder as centuries passed, culminating in today's recognition of climate change and environmental crisis. The age of exploration, then, was not just a time of expansion. It was the moment humanity began to see Earth as both vast and vulnerable. What is striking is how quickly discovery turned to exploitation, and how often knowledge was lost in conquest. Indigenous maps of stars, plants, and animals contained wisdom far beyond what explorers understood. Medicines hidden in rainforests, farming techniques adapted to fragile ecosystems, and stories that explained natural cycles were dismissed as primitive. Yet now, modern science rediscovers many of these truths, validating knowledge once erased. This cycle discovery, erasure, rediscovery echoes through history, reminding us that Earth's mysteries are not only hidden in landscapes, but also in the voices of those who lived with it most closely. The age of exploration changed the story of Earth forever. It made the planet smaller in perception, but larger in complexity. It revealed both wonders and wounds, both beauty and brutality, and perhaps most importantly, it forced humanity to recognize that Earth was not infinite, that its lands, peoples, and systems were interconnected in ways no empire could fully control. The world became for the first time a single stage, and humanity began to play on it with consequences that would echo for centuries. In the end, the age of exploration was a paradox. It brought knowledge, but also destruction. It revealed Earth's diversity, but erased much of its wisdom. It showed the planet as finite and fragile, but inspired exploitation as if it were endless. Yet without it, we might never have come to see Earth as a whole, a living sphere of interconnections. The maps we draw today, the satellites that circle the globe, the environmental movements that seek to protect it, all trace their roots to that moment when humans first dared to sail beyond the horizon and realized that Earth, for all its vastness, is one shared hope. The Industrial Age was the moment humanity's relationship with Earth shifted more dramatically than at any other point in history. For thousands of years, people lived within the limits of muscle, wind, and water. Civilizations rose and fell according to harvests, rivers, and climate. Human power was immense in imagination, but small in scale compared to the planet itself. That balance changed with the arrival of machines, when coal-fed furnaces roared, when steam engines pulled trains across continents, when factories churned with relentless efficiency. Humanity unlocked forces far beyond its own muscle. In that moment, Earth ceased to be a vast mystery beyond control and began to look to us like a machine itself, something to be mined, drilled, burned, and consumed. The Industrial Age was not only an era of progress, but the beginning of a dangerous illusion that humanity could master Earth rather than live within its limits. It began with coal, black stone dug from the depths of the earth, ancient forests compressed into fuel over millions of years. For early humans, fire was survival, but coal turned fire into industry. Suddenly, machines no longer depended on rivers or winds. They ran day and night, fueled by the Earth's buried past. Factories multiplied, cities swelled, and smoke thickened the skies. The rhythm of life changed. Where once people lived by the rising sun and changing seasons, they now lived by the clock, the whistle, the machine's demand. Earth's cycles became background noise, drowned out by the roar of industry. Yet beneath the noise, the planet began to shift. Carbon, once locked safely underground, poured into the skies. Forests fell for timber and farmland. Rivers were dammed, redirected, or poisoned. Earth was no longer simply home. It was raw material. With coal came iron, steel, and railways. Trains stitched continents together, transforming distance into hours rather than weeks. The ground was cut open for tracks. Mountains tunneled, rivers bridged. The Earth's geography became an obstacle to conquer, its resistance reduced by engineering and dynamite. Ships, now powered by steam, crossed oceans regardless of wind, binding continents into a global network. Earth itself was being rewoven, its once isolated parts forced into connection by human will. What explorers once risked their lives to map, locomotives and steamships now made routine. The world felt smaller still, and humanity's sense of power grew. But the greatest change came with oil. Liquid fire, buried deep beneath the ground, became the lifeblood of a new age. Unlike coal, oil could be transported, stored, and burned with ease. It fueled cars, planes, and the engines of war. By the 20th century, oil was more valuable than gold, the prize for which nations schemed and fought. Entire regions of Earth became strategic, not for their culture or people, but for the crude buried beneath their soil. With oil came plastics, fertilizers, chemicals, products that transformed daily life, but also tethered humanity's fate more tightly to extraction. Earth's ancient reserves, built over eons, were being consumed in mere centuries. The Industrial Age was not just about energy, it was about transformation. Forests that had stood for millennia fell in decades. Cities sprawled across landscapes, swallowing farmland and wilderness. Rivers were turned into sewers, skies into chimneys. For the first time, humanity altered the chemistry of the atmosphere, the acidity of the oceans, the fertility of the soil. Scientists now call this period the Great Acceleration, the moment when human activity became the dominant force reshaping Earth. What tectonic shifts did in millions of years, industry began to do in generations. Humanity had become a geological force. Yet even as industry scarred the planet, it dazzled humanity. Electricity illuminated nights, banishing darkness and extending productivity. Telegraphs, and later telephones, sent messages across continents in seconds. Airplanes lifted humans into the skies, fulfilling dreams once reserved for gods and myths. To live in the Industrial Age was to witness miracles, to believe that nothing was beyond reach. Earth's mysteries seemed solvable, its power tameable, its resources endless. This faith in progress became its own myth, one far more dangerous than the legends of old, because unlike those, this myth denied the planet's limits. The Industrial Age also marked the beginning of global inequality tied directly to Earth's exploitation. Industrial powers grew rich, fueled by resources extracted from colonies and foreign lands. The wealth of Europe and America was built on the coal, oil, timber, and minerals of Africa, Asia, and the Americas. Entire ecosystems were stripped bare not for local benefit, but for distant empires. This extraction left scars that remain today: deforestation, desertification, poisoned rivers, displaced peoples. In the name of progress, the earth was carved up and consumed unevenly, with some reaping abundance while others were left with ruin. Even then, there were voices warning of danger. As early as the 19th century, writers noted the choking smog of London, the deforestation of Europe, the overhunting of animals. In 1864, George Perkins Marsh wrote, "Man and Nature," warning that human activity could destroy the environment on which civilization depended. But these warnings were drowned out by the roar of machines, the profits of industry, and the intoxicating sense of power. Humanity raced forward, convinced it could engineer its way past any obstacle. Yet beneath the confidence, the costs were accumulating. The Industrial Age also introduced humanity to fossil fuel-driven war. World Wars I and II were not just conflicts of nations. They were battles fueled by oil and industry. Factories became arsenals. Landscapes became battlefields. And the earth itself bore the scars of mechanized destruction: bomb craters, scorched forests, radioactive wastelands. These were new kinds of wounds, inflicted not by tectonics or storms, but by human machines. The earth had always seen violence, but now it was violence on a planetary scale, with humanity wielding tools capable of reshaping landscapes overnight. Perhaps the most profound shift of the Industrial Age was the birth of the Anthropocene, the recognition that human activity is now the dominant force shaping Earth's systems. We have altered the atmosphere, melted glaciers, raised seas, and triggered extinctions at a rate unseen since the asteroid that ended the dinosaurs. Our cities glow so brightly they are visible from space. Our highways cut across continents like scars. Our waste fills oceans and soils. Earth is no longer what it was. It is a planet remade, for better and worse, by one species. And yet the Industrial Age also sowed the seeds of awareness. As the 20th century progressed, pollution grew harder to ignore. Rivers caught fire, skies turned black, species vanished. Scientists began to track the rising levels of carbon dioxide, warning of global warming. Environmental movements emerged, demanding cleaner air, protected lands, and respect for nature. Ironically, the very science born from the Industrial Age, geology, chemistry, biology, revealed the damage industry had done. For the first time, humanity began to see that Earth's resilience had limits, that progress without balance was destruction in disguise. The legacy of the Industrial Age is therefore double-edged. It gave humanity power beyond imagination, reshaping societies and lifting billions from poverty. But it also destabilized the systems that make life possible. Earth has carried the weight of our machines, but its patience is not infinite. The question is whether humanity can learn from the age that gave it power, or whether that power will become the engine of its downfall. In the end, the Industrial Age was a turning point. It transformed Earth into something new, a planet of smoke and steel, of machines and scars. It revealed both the heights of human ingenuity and the depths of human arrogance, and it left us with a choice that echoes into the present: to continue consuming Earth as if it were a machine, or to recognize that it is a living being, fragile and finite, demanding respect. The story of the Industrial Age is not finished. It continues in every factory, every pipeline, every smokestack, and the question it leaves us with is simple but urgent. Can humanity rise beyond the age of industry, or will we be consumed by the very power we unleash? The modern age arrived with an intensity unlike anything the Earth had seen before. In just a few decades, humanity leapt from coal and steam to satellites, computers, and nuclear energy. The pace of change became dizzying. What once took centuries of discovery now unfolded in years, even months. For the first time, humans were not just shaping the surface of Earth. They were altering its very systems, knowingly or unknowingly, and extending their reach beyond its atmosphere. The story of Earth in the modern era is not simply about invention, it is about collision. It is the collision between progress and preservation, between power and restraint, between a species that can do nearly anything and a planet that cannot withstand everything. At the heart of the modern age is technology, and technology has both illuminated Earth and obscured it. Satellites orbiting above capture images of glaciers melting, forests vanishing, and cities glowing like constellations. For the first time in history, humanity can see Earth as a whole in real time. That image, famously captured by Apollo astronauts as the blue marble, shifted consciousness. It revealed Earth's fragility, its isolation in the dark, and the thin veil of atmosphere that sustains all life. Yet while technology brought this awareness, it also accelerated the very forces destabilizing Earth. Cars multiplied, planes filled the skies, factories expanded, and the world became addicted to the burning of fossil fuels. With each advance came both wonder and warning. Globalization tied Earth together in ways unimaginable before. Goods, ideas, and people move across the globe with unprecedented speed. A decision made in one corner of the planet can ripple across continents within hours. Economies intertwine and supply chains span oceans, but this interconnectedness comes with hidden costs. The demand for cheap products drives deforestation in the Amazon. The thirst for rare minerals scars landscapes in Africa and Asia. Carbon emissions from one nation melt ice on the other side of the globe. Earth's systems, already interwoven, now bend beneath the weight of human activity magnified by globalization. What seemed like triumph, one world connected, revealed itself also as vulnerability. A pandemic spreads in weeks. An economic collapse ripples worldwide. A warming atmosphere spares no border. In the modern age, Earth is more united than ever, and yet more at risk than ever. Perhaps nothing defines the modern era more starkly than the rise of fossil fuels and their consequences. The 20th century was built on oil, gas, and coal, powering everything from cars to cities to wars. The convenience of cheap energy transformed life. Electricity lit up nights, air conditioning cooled deserts, and airplanes shrank the globe. But the cost is measured in parts per million of carbon dioxide, climbing steadily in the atmosphere. The warming Earth is not theory, it is reality. Glaciers retreat, seas rise, storms grow fiercer, droughts spread, and wildfires rage with increasing intensity. The modern age has given humanity more power than ever before, but it has also exposed the delicate balance that makes Earth habitable. For the first time, humanity is confronted with the possibility that its own actions could make Earth less welcoming, even hostile to its survival. But the modern age is not only about destruction, it is also about awareness. Environmental science, born in the mid-20th century, revealed the impacts of industrialization. Books like Rachel Carson's Silent Spring warned of poisons in the soil, and the environmental movement rose, demanding clean water, protected forests, and international action. Treaties were signed to protect the ozone layer, to conserve species, and to curb emissions. Some succeeded, like the Montreal Protocol, which healed the ozone hole. Others faltered, caught in the tension between economic growth and ecological limits. Still, The very fact that humanity can discuss planetary-scale problems is new. No other species has ever debated its impact on Earth as a whole. That awareness is the defining feature of the modern age, the recognition that we are no longer passengers on Earth, but drivers, for better or worse. Technology, however, complicates this awareness. On one hand, it offers solutions: solar panels, wind turbines, electric vehicles, carbon capture, and even geoengineering. On the other hand, it creates new challenges: plastic waste choking oceans, electronic waste piling in toxic heaps, and energy-hungry data centers altering local climates. The digital revolution has given humanity immense power to connect, to share, to innovate, but it has also created illusions. Many forget that every device, every network, every cloud rests on Earth, on rare minerals mined from mountains, on electricity pulled from grids, on undersea cables stretching across oceans. The modern dream of infinite connectivity hides the truth. It is built on finite Earth. The modern age has also forced humanity to face ethical questions on a planetary scale. Nuclear weapons, born in the 20th century, gave humans the power to end civilizations in minutes. For the first time, Earth itself became hostage to human decisions. Cold War tensions held the planet in a grip of fear, as arsenals large enough to destroy the biosphere sat poised for release. Although nuclear catastrophe was averted, the weapons remain, silent shadows reminding us of our capacity for self-destruction. This awareness that humanity could end not just itself but much of Earth's life haunts the modern imagination. And yet amid this shadow, hope endures. Modern science reveals not only risks but wonders. We now understand the DNA shared across all life, the deep history written in rocks, the climate systems that breathe across continents. We have discovered hydrothermal vents where life thrives without sunlight, microbes that survive in radioactive waste, and ecosystems that rebound when given the chance. These discoveries remind us that Earth is not fragile in the sense of weakness. It is resilient, adaptable, and alive. What is fragile is our place within it, our reliance on balance. The modern era has forced us to confront this truth. Earth will endure in some form, but whether humanity thrives depends on choices we make now. The paradox of the modern age is that it has given humanity unprecedented vision, yet has blinded us with distraction. We can peer into galaxies millions of light years away, yet ignore the forests vanishing next door. We can decode genomes, yet fail to protect species. We can watch hurricanes form days in advance, yet rebuild in the same floodplains. Knowledge is abundant, but wisdom is scarce. And so Earth teeters between futures, one of stewardship where humanity learns to live within limits, and one of collapse where limits are ignored until they are enforced by catastrophe. Ultimately, the modern age is a mirror. It reflects the best and worst of humanity, magnified across the planet. It shows our ingenuity in harnessing energy, curing disease, and exploring space. It shows our recklessness in burning, polluting, and consuming beyond measure. It reveals Earth as both generous and finite, resilient, yet threatened. And it places in our hands the greatest responsibility ever held by a species, to recognize that our fate and Earth's are inseparable. As we move deeper into this century, the question becomes unavoidable. Can we change? Can we move from conquest to care, from exploitation to balance, from short-term gain to long-term survival? The modern age has given us tools, awareness and choices. What remains uncertain is whether we have the courage to use them wisely, because the truth is stark. Earth will outlast us, but whether it remains a home or a warning depends on decisions made in the here and now. The modern age is not just a chapter in Earth's story. It may be the turning point that decides the ending. After tracing the long and extraordinary story of Earth from its fiery birth in cosmic chaos, through the rise of oceans, mountains, life and civilizations, to the modern age of machines, technology and global awareness, one truth stands out above all. This planet is not simply the ground beneath our feet. It is a living archive, a restless force, and a fragile sanctuary. It has endured collisions, extinctions, and upheavals that stretch beyond imagination, yet it continues to carry us, shelter us, and feed us. And while it has been here long before us and will remain long after, its story and ours are now inseparably intertwined. What makes Earth remarkable is not only its resilience, but also its complexity. Every rock, Every drop of water, every breath of air tells part of the story. Mountains rise, crumble, and rise again. Oceans expand and retreat. Species emerge, thrive, and vanish. Even civilizations, so confident in their permanence, are fleeting chapters. And yet, through all of this, Earth has never stopped reshaping itself. The question that lingers is whether humanity will choose to live as part of that rhythm or continue to fight against it. For all our power, we remain bound by the same cycles that shaped the dinosaurs, the same climate that nurtured our ancestors, the same fragile biosphere that could disappear if pushed too far. The modern age, with all its brilliance and danger, has shown us both sides of that reality. Technology has allowed us to see Earth as a whole, to study its systems with precision, to understand the consequences of our actions. Yet at the same time, technology has fueled an illusion that progress is endless, that growth can be infinite, that Earth is a resource to be consumed rather than a home to be protected. The paradox is clear. We have never known so much about our planet, and yet we have never been so close to destabilizing it. Our species has become powerful enough to alter the atmosphere, shift the climate, and drive extinctions, but the question remains whether we are wise enough to control that power. What history teaches us is humbling. Earth has survived asteroid strikes, supervolcanoes, and ice ages. It will survive us too if it must. But what is at stake is not Earth's survival. It is ours. Will we adapt to the changes we have set in motion? Or will we ignore the warnings until it is too late? Will we learn to live within limits? Or will those limits be imposed on us by rising seas, collapsing ecosystems, and a climate spiraling beyond control? The answers depend not on Earth but on us. And yet, there is reason for hope. The same species that invented engines and bombs also invented microscopes and telescopes, poetry and philosophy, medicine and conservation. We have the ability to destroy, but also the ability to protect, to restore, to imagine a future where humanity lives not above Earth, but within it. Already, movements across the globe fight to defend forests, heal rivers, shift energy, and preserve what remains. Already, people are rethinking what progress means, not as conquest but as balance. Already, voices rise to remind us that Earth is not just a planet, it is our only home. Perhaps the greatest gift Earth has given us is perspective, from myths that sought to explain its mysteries, to explorers who revealed its vastness, to astronauts who saw its fragile beauty from space. Every age has deepened our awareness, and with awareness comes responsibility. We are no longer wanderers wondering what lies beyond the horizon. We are caretakers of a world whose horizon we now fully understand. What remains uncertain is whether we will rise to that role or fall under the weight of our own arrogance. In the end, the story of Earth is not finished. It continues with every choice we make, every resource we consume, every technology we build, every forest we protect, every species we save. It continues with us, and it will continue after us. But what will that story say? Will it speak of a species that burned too bright and too fast, leaving scars across a wounded planet? Or will it tell of a turning point, a moment when humanity realized the truth and chose to live differently? The conclusion is not written. It waits in the future, shaped by our present. Earth has given us everything: water, food, shelter, life itself. And now, more than ever, it waits for our answer. Will we finally learn to honor it, or will we force it to remind us in the harshest ways who truly holds the power?